Outdoor lighting may seem simple, but there's some key things that you're going to want to consider for a very successful outdoor lighting job. In this video, we're going to cover 5 key things to make your outdoor lighting successful. So let's get into it. Hey everybody, I'm Kevin Fontaine. I'm a professional outdoor lighting designer. And I've been through formal training through AOLP and ILI, and I want to share with you today some things that we've seen over the years, good things and bad things. We don't want your house to look like this. We want your project and lighting job to look like this. And so we're going to go over a few things today with you to help you get there, okay? All right, everybody, let's jump into it. So the first of the 5 keys to success is fixture choice. Fixtures have evolved over the years through technology, improvements, etc. So, choosing a fixture, back in the day, they were really big. They've gotten smaller, right? And they've gotten teeny. Now I'm showing you this is what more we like to use, because the smaller the fixture the better, as long as it does the same job for us. We want smaller. For instance, choosing the fixture, so this is a wash, it's a mini wash. You're not going to want to choose this type of fixture to light up a huge tree, a very tall big tree or a large area, right? So choosing the right fixture for the right scenario is key. Long linear lines, I picked up this tape light before. These guys are great for long linear surfaces, undermounting, stone capping, stepping, banisters, etc. This gives you a full, consistent beam throughout that whole line. So this is very modern, just so awesome looking today. That's a good tool and a good fixture to choose for those long linear elements. Spotlights is your main workhorse for these outdoor lighting projects. So spotlights, this is an old one we've ripped out over the years, but this has been the go-to for most people out there doing lighting. The main issue we've seen over the years is they'll take one fixture like this spotlight and they'll place it all over the house, lower. They'll try to go up and get some of the upper area of the home. They'll use the same fixture up there. And the problem with that, it's not engineered correctly. You're getting more lumens in areas where you don't need that much lumen output. And then you're seeing this fixture up there visible, just sticking out on the roof or the gutter line. So we want to use something a lot smaller for up there, so choose something smaller if you can, so you can hide that fixture. You don't want to see the fixture, you just want to see the result. This is a common issue that we've seen, is they'll put these under the trees, foundation, upstairs, downstairs. It's like a catch-all. They'll just go buy a batch of these. You might get a discount and just order a ton of these things and just start going willy-nilly crazy with them, and it's just not the right way to attack a real professional project. You want to really plan and place fixtures based on what they're specialized to do. And so this workhorse is great for trees, lower foundations. It's better if you can hide them behind foliage, shrubbery, stonework, brickwork. During the day, you just want to see a clean landscape, and you want that landscape lighting job to look integrated. So if there's anything you are seeing, path lights, something very, up in the air where you do have to have lighting, you want it to look integrated into the home best way possible. So you want to marry it with the home, with the architecture, whether it's a totally recessed fixture that you don't see, but it looks built in, or whether it's an art bollard, which looks very artistic and very crafted, or a nice copper or brass path light, traditional path light. Those are all great looking things during the day, but just make sure it matches your style, your sense, your home structure, what you kind of want to see. There's even those path lights that we use that are more markers, so they'll actually shoot sideways, and they're so low that they're going to be out of the way from kids kicking balls, dogs running around. Now we don't have the ability to knock those traditional path lights over. Now we're sunken in the ground. We're still doing the same function of safely lighting a pathway, but we've taken that hazard away. So there's a lot of things to consider with the fixtures, and that's a big one. Okay, the next one we're going to go into is placement. So placement is very important. One of the major components to a successful lighting job. You're going to have placements that you're going to want to consider. Number one, that they're in a safe location. Safe meaning they're not going to be a trip hazard. So the more we can integrate the fixture into the project, the better. And that goes with recessed, woodworking, where you're getting it into the material so it's out of the way of arms and feet up against maybe the front of the home. You're going to want to allow it to be hidden as best as possible. A lot of these fixtures aren't necessarily the best to be seen during the day, so there's only certain types of fixtures that we want you to see or your guests to see. A lot of those can be path lighting. Those placements along your walkways, driveways, those are very pretty, but you do have that consideration of being knocked over, dogs, kids kicking the ball around. There's other alternatives that we can choose, lower fixtures, etc., more marking path type, that you may want to choose that for placement. Another thing we've seen over the years and still see today is the placement of too far away from, say, the home. So the home front, you're trying to light up the lower, you're trying to light up some of the upper areas. We see a lot of people going way too far. That causes light pollution, which we'll get into in a moment. But what it does, it shoots and casts a bad look to that home. You're washing now the home. And what washing is when you broadcast a large light from further away, and it lights up the whole area, but you lose the detail, and your architecture suffers from that. A common thing you'll see is like Christmas time, people will get a big floodlight or two, and they'll just broadcast it onto their home. It lights up the whole house, and that's fine and dandy, but talk about a nightmare if you're inside. All the windows are just lit up, and you lose the detail. So get closer to the structure, do more grazing so you can see that detail, see the woodwork, see the stonework, see the brickwork. That's how you're accentuating your home. You're not going to accentuate a home by washing it out. You're going to lose all that. So that's huge. So placement's key. Another thing about placement is glare bombs. You want it directionally correct. So pedestrians, guests, family, when they're going to point A to point B, that they're not getting hit with direct light into the eyeballs. So you're going to want to test placements in your landscape. So the next one we're going to look into is don't have light pollution or light trespass. So we talked about a little bit about that earlier. So the further away you are from a window, the more apt you are to wash light inside. And that's just a no-no. You know, AOLP is a governing body of lighting designs, so we're held to a standard that doesn't promote or wants you to do that. That light pollution is just not the correct way to do things. So get closer to the subject, use a lower lumen, move around the windows instead of in front of the window. Do anything you can to prevent a poorly engineered, poorly designed project. And another thing too, you know, anywhere you are in the country, look up AOLP. They have a find a member section where you can find licensed professionals there. And you want somebody that's been trained on this stuff, or if you're a do-it-yourselfer, ask them for help. We're always willing to help people that are even doing some things on their own. But you know, start there. That's the governing body for the nation for outdoor lighting. All right, so light pollution. is big and it's bad, and we still see it today. So don't do that. You're creating such a nuisance inside that you can't look out at night and enjoy all that landscape that you have. You know, if you lighten up a nice tree out in the backyard or the front yard and you've got all this blinding light coming in because the fixture's too far away, you just kind of, now you're in a prison cell instead of an oasis where you're seeing a beautiful tree clear as day. You can't do that because you're blinded. And so the next thing is light trespass. Light trespass is, say you have some downlighting, or you're planning on doing downlighting, or you're lighting up a tree along your property line. Watch out for your neighbors. That light trespass can go potentially over into their space, into their point of view, and you don't want to, you know, make the neighbors pissed. You want to be a good neighbor. Make sure your direction of that beam is correct, so it's going to not go into someone else's viewpoint. Another thing I mentioned before, glare bombs. So walk around the landscape, and where do you normally walk? What's the patterns? What's the pathways that you take generally? Well, you want to keep those fixtures away from that viewpoint as you walk those. So plan out those, how you're going to sit, say on a deck, how low are you going to sit? Well, then that's going to mean you got to keep that light source from pointing there or downward. So that's your stopping point. You can't be eye level, because then now you're going to see that glare bomb, and that's a nuisance while you're trying to relax and entertain and enjoy the space. The shrouding, that a lot of the downlights, if they're specifically made for downlighting, they're going to have a longer shroud, and that's to help you remove that glare. So it's a glare shield that extends. So that's a really nice feature on some of these higher end downlighting systems. So fourth, we're going to go through its composition of your subject. What are you lighting? Is it a tree? Is it the house? Well, how full are you lighting that up? Another common mistake or things we've seen is people, like, say a tree, a good sized tree, say it's a 20-foot, 30-foot beautiful tree. One fixture's not generally going to do you any good. Yeah, that's lighting up a part of the tree, but a more professional way is to get 2 on that, or 3. We've done 8 lights on a tree before. It's not about blowing the tree up with a ton of lights, it's getting it full. That's the reasoning for more lights. Really think about that and practice out there in the yard with a few lights. How far away does it look better? How many looks better? Because you want it to be full. Another thing about fullness is, with trees especially, connect that trunk to the ground. If you just do focus on the foliage and the branching, it's not grounded. It doesn't see, if you don't see the stem and the trunk, it's like not being grounded to the human brain. So it's going to look like more of a UFO from a distance than an actual recognition of a tree. Let's talk about the house now. All right, so you want to avoid large voids of blackness or darkness. One thing about landscape lighting, though, is you do want a balance of light and dark. That's contrast. Contrast is awesome. You want contrast into a lighting. You don't want everything totally lit, and you do not want big sections not lit. So it's a balance of how well you're completing that picture, right, for someone that's gonna enjoy your lighting scene. So we've seen some people miss elements because they don't know the right fixture or technique to get up there and get that upper end of the home. Say it's a dormer or a section over a gable where they just don't understand, how am I going to get a light up there? That's a very common one. Or it's too expensive, right? Those are the common things we've heard over the years is, well, I'd love to do it. It's a big part of my home, but it's on the 3rd story, or it's above, it's very dangerous to get to. So those are things you're going to consider. to get a beautiful, complete picture and look out of your lighting. Yeah, I guess an analogy would be like, consider a painting. What if 20% of the major part of that painting wasn't even visible? So if there's a blank section on a beautiful painting, we're missing out, you're missing out, and that's your home. If you're missing a big section, that's a problem, and that's where you need to hire a professional to come in and get that covered. So, you know, the whole garage part of your home, a lot of times that can't be done without a professional. So that's a lot of high-end, very masterful work to core drill to get wires underneath hard surfaces that are permanent and lighting up into a gable area that's hard to get to. A lot of times we're hiding wire under siding, and we're drilling through, we're going through soffits, we're doing advanced installation techniques. So like I said before, hire a professional for those very difficult scenarios. The final keys to the successful lighting component: wiring and connections. Wire is very important. It's the backbone of the system. It runs all the power to all your fixtures from the transformer. Finding a good gauge wire is important, and the gauge of the wire, you know, the increase in thickness of that wire means you have more distance you can travel and less chance of dropping voltage as you go further and further away. So that's another video we can probably do, is engineering and calculating runs, distances, etc., loads. Running our wire, it needs to be always concealed, no matter if it's above ground or below ground. At the ground level, you want to try to get your wire at least 6 inches below ground. The further the better, because you know, people dig, you gardening, you're going to nick something that's shallower than that. Wire needs to be direct burial wire, so ensure that it's got the proper sheathing, that it's rated for direct burial wire, and it's low voltage. The thicker the wire, the better. That's just, over-engineering is always a thing we like to do, because what if they want to add, or you want to add a fixture or two later? If we over-engineer the wiring, we're going to have the ability to add on something later and not have to run something new. So over-engineer your wire size, go thicker, keep it out of harm's way. So dive bombing it at least 6 inches. You can use trenching shovels, you can use a lot of varying methods to get it lower like that. Sometimes if it's in a high risk area, you're going to want to place it in actual conduit as well. Everywhere the wire needs to go, it needs to be concealed. Squirrels love wire. I don't know why, but we just did an HOA, and the previous person had installed the post lamps, which we'll put a picture right here. The post lamps are actually, the wire was ran on the outside of the column, and squirrels went to town on this thing. They had 12 post lamps all riddled with squirrel bites, and so the system started failing because you got water intrusion at that point and you got shorting out. So we had to totally conceal that wire to protect it in the future. Same thing for upper story. You want to conceal that wire, whether it's ran inside a soffit or a gutter sometimes, or under siding. Connections is the next one. Connections is huge. That's your water intrusion points of contact, and you want to have a very good connection system. So you have the traditional wire nuts. We've seen so many nightmares where people try to wrap it with tape, electrical tape, thinking that's going to waterproof it somehow. It's not, because water wicks and works its way in over time. So at least use a good silicone-filled nut that's approved for outdoor lighting. We've gone way past that. We use something called DBY systems, where it's a direct burial method through a grease tube. You know, our above connections, we use what's called a shrink, heat shrink method, and it's just so bulletproof, and that's That's what professionals tend to use. We'll try to put some links below to some of that material choice and functions for you. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching today. We've had a blast going over these top 5 key components to a successful lighting system. If you have any comments or suggestions, put them in below. We'll answer those questions and concerns you might have. And remember, lighting is very important. It's good to go outside at night and enjoy your major investment, which is usually your home and your family. So they want to enjoy themselves. Until next time, we'll see you in the next video.